Colleagues, thank you very much, Linda, for inviting me to join you this morning. I was hoping to talk to you a little bit about strategic approaches to successful student engagement and well-being. Um, and in order to do so, I think we have to ask ourselves, first and foremost, the question, what is engagement? What is learner engagement? And if you look at the literature, you will find that it is sort of normally defined as the energy and effort that students employ within their learning community, observable via a number of behavioral, cognitive, or affective indicators across a continuum. So very much around the agency that the individual student is willing to put in, as well as about the affordances of the learning community and the environment that we create for them, be it in terms of pedagogical affordances, be it in terms of technological affordances, whatever that might be. And Bond and Lear go on to say that it is shaped by a range of structural internal influences, including the complex interplay of relationships, learning activities, and learning environment. Again, key focus here on relationships, the social interactions that we make available, the types of activities we present, the extent to which that they welcome the learner in, as it were, and the broader environment in which those are located. Whoops, let's see where we go. So to highlight then, with reference to some other research from Habermas and Al-Houri, those are by and large the key sort of researchers in this field. Engagement is about the notion of action. It's about how widely students are involved in activities. It's about goal direction, and it's about a purpose. It's about context dependency. It is about engagement is a construct that's defined by cultures within which they're embedded, communities within they're embedded. So the schools, the learning program on which they're on, the in classroom environment, and so forth. And it is dynamic and malleable, so it's not a static construct. It's also maybe helpful to look very briefly at the differences between engagement and motivation. Martin et al. Note that motivation can be distinguished from engagement in the sense that the intensity and the quality of student involvement in the learning activity or environment differs meaningfully from the forces that energize and direct that behavior. So, in other words, engagement is a concept that's related to motivation, but at the same time, it is different from motivation in that it is about enacting one's motivation. We note, therefore, that engagement is a multidimensional construct. It is, of course, about behaviors. It can be manifest itself through attendance, participation, persistence, efforts, and so forth. But also, of course, it's cognitive. It's around the willingness to engage in effortful and persistent and persist with challenging tasks. So we know that learning is hard work, and it's the learner's willingness to invest themselves into tasks that very often drive outcomes. It's about purposiveness, strategy use, and so forth. It has also got an emotional dimension, and that's where we get to well-being. It's about the sense of belonging, the extent to which one values education, and as I mentioned earlier on, agency is important. It is agentive. It's a proactive, constructive contribution to the flow of instruction, enriching, personalizing, modifying, or requesting instruction. So I think it's really important for us, therefore, to think that engagement is something that we as educators and as course designers can influence in many different ways. And it's not just something that depends on the learner, but it's very much something that depends on us as educators that we can help shape. There is various different indicators at the cognitive, affective, and behavioral engagement. We haven't got time now to look at those, but it is possible. That's the purpose of this slide, to determine whether or not engagement takes place, and to look for indicators that tell us whether it takes place, because that then gives us the opportunity to make judgments about whether or not activities and so forth work, or if they don't work. And we can distinguish from the research procedural and substantive engagement. So what we there need to try and do is move away from a sort of compliance culture, students engaging in activities because they have to, and because that leads to superficiality and pseudo engagement, and move instead to an engagement that's authentic, intrinsic, and that is sustained, that help student sense making. And again, there's a lot we can do as educators to foster that. So why is learner engagement important? Well, there is plenty of research out there that links engagement to positive learning outcomes. So low engagement, little engagement, correlating to low achievement, high engagement correlating to high achievement. And also, there is research out there that shows that engagement can drive people actually staying on task, long-term involved. And we all know when we talk about online and distant learning provision, how persistence is so important to ensure progression from one year to the next, and continuation on the program. So all these things are linked, and those are reasons why it's important. Engagement drives learning. They are a commitment of the learner to invest in their learning futures. There's also, of course, a number of theoretical models that show that learning occurs through meaningful engagement in material, and there is epistemic cognition and practices, which is beliefs, theories, and concepts that the individual holds about knowledge and knowing being important, and again, engagement being an indicator for that. So there's a lot of research that shows us that it's well worthwhile us paying attention to engagement in order to bring about better learning outcomes, and support learners move purposefully through the material with greater, more meaningful outcomes and longer-term achievements. We can see here in this slide that engagement is influenced by a huge number of factors at the student level, at the micro level, at the meso level, at the exo level, and the macro level. Obviously, we tend to have most control at the micro level, in terms of the curriculum, in terms of the technology, and so forth. But I think we also need to recognize the importance of influences more broadly in a broadly neoliberal education system. There's a lot of pressure on learners to perform well, and there's lots of pressures for learners to fund, for example, their own studies, all of which impact negatively on engagement by, for example, taking away learners' time to concentrate on their studies, and focus a lot on examination outcomes as opposed to maybe broader learning games. So this is just a slide to recognize the broader picture in which we all operate. I think what is important, and that's sort of one of my main arguments, is for us to think about what sort of epistemic cultures, as the literature calls them, we can create as part of our programs, as part of our courses, as part of our institutions, to foster engagement. And that can start at the level of what is called here a learnish, namely the way we talk about the process of learning and the nature of oneself as a learner, one's improvement and intentions as a learner. All of that can have a huge impact, positive impact on engagement. The activities that we create with a view to making learning both attractive and challenging, that activities stretch learners appropriately, and we know how important that is. Keeping both content and process in mind, making sure students understand how they learn some content and embed that in metacognitive discussions in lessons, then make things rich, the experiences that learners have on programs rich, real, and give them responsibilities for problem solving and other dimensions. Be transparent and take students seriously as Claxton calls them here, epistemic co-workers, so that they're part of the planning process, part of the learning process, as active shapers. Ensure that the wider relevance and application of learning tasks are obvious, that there is a progression and that there is a sufficient modeling. So there is, in other words, a number of things we can do in order to foster engagement by creating what Claxton calls here epistemic cultures of engagement. And that, of course, has implications for the designs for learning that we use, with a particular focus also on intellectual engagement, cognitive engagement, questions around the emphasis of conceptual learning, the provision of time for in-depth work, the integration of authentic assessment to enable students to really demonstrate what they're able to do in relevant contexts. A sense of deep intellectual and emotional investment in learning, providing those opportunities for learners, giving them a sense of ownership, and. So the point here being, again, it is up to us as professionals through the design that we put in place to recognize the importance of engagement and provide a learning environment that's conducive to student engagement. In the online context in particular, we very often talk about cognitive presence through the material and teaching presence through the design of the material, but not always do we, I think, give enough emphasis, place enough emphasis on the social presence. That's very important from an engagement perspective, namely the ability of learners to project their personal characteristics into the community of inquiry of which they are part. And so this model here that you will find described in many papers, I find quite helpful in thinking about, again, the design of approaches to online learning that are conducive to fostering engagement. One of the questions obviously that keeps coming up more and more through the emergence of AI is what does that mean for human centricity, or are we moving much more to a technocentric model? And I think it's really important for us to think carefully about how we foster student engagement in our integration of AI into the learning environment. It's got lots of potential there in terms of opportunities for immersion, to self-paced learning, taking away sort of stress potentially for students, a lack of direction and so forth, the possibility to offer real-time feedback, again, taking away anxiety from learners, all aspects of well-being that we're very well aware of, potentially enhancing authenticity of assessment and providing more personalized learning experience, also offering connectivity and social interaction opportunities through virtual tutors and chatbots, and providing great degrees of interactivity and possibly also strengthen accessibility of text, the voice. All of these things can, fundamentally support engagement. We just need to make sure that we don't lose the sort of human centricity in the process. And very finally, I'd just like to come back to the notion of well-being in all of this. And it's interesting to see in the recent literature the notion or the concept of care and self-care emerging more and more, where we're being urged to look much more at being discerning in how we engage in digital technologies and social media, and do so in a way that maintains and enhances well-being rather than induces stress. And I think, again, there's obviously a question of how individual learners use those technologies, but also what expectations we as pedagogues have, as teachers have, and how we design technologies into those programs. And then, of course, supporting learners in leveraging the advantages of digitalization without compromising personal well-being. So things like not making the learner feel that they have to check for updates every 2 seconds, but it's perfectly enough to have certain points in the day, in the week, when to engage with those resources. So all I'm saying here is there's obviously a very, very clear relationship between the way in which we use technology, the demands we make on learners through the use of technology and social media, and the concept of student well-being. And as I've tried to show earlier on, I consider student well-being, very much related to the concept of engagement. So, Linda, those would be some of my thoughts just that set out an argument, I hope, for the real need and desirability to focus on engagement, both particularly in the way we design our learning environments and the broader cultures that we promote through our programs.
Thank you very much, Norbert. I think you've done a fantastic job of really taking us back to what do we mean by engagement and well-being, and then building us through the ways in which that can be facilitated and the challenges, and particularly for that online distance, digitally enhanced experience that students have. So thank you very much. And there's definitely some resonance with the language of learnish and wild topics and deep learning. So some really good stuff there. Thank you very much. And I like very much the way in which that builds from our first two presentations and absolutely starts to illustrate and set some frameworks for some of the questions and the discussion that we had there. So I'm delighted to invite our next speaker who's going to be talking about these issues of successful student engagement and well-being. Dr. Parimala Veluvall. Sorry, I'm not doing a good job on that, but hopefully I'm doing a good job on pulling the questions together, which is the point of the chair. So welcome. And please, would you like us to share your slides, or will you share your slides?
Yeah, thank you. I'll share the slides, Linda, from my side.
Thank you.
I hope my presentation deck is visible.
It's visible, yeah, and it's in presentation mode now. Thank you.
Good afternoon from India, and good morning to everybody in the UK. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Dr. Parimala Veluvall, the Director for Symbiosis School for Online and Digital Learning that serves as the Center for Distance and Online Education of the Symbiosis International University. I'm very happy to be here in this forum, and what I'm going to do is present our experience on how we try to foster student engagement in the online programs that we have started offering at the university. So this is going to be the flow of my presentation. I'll briefly outline the regulatory framework for offering online programs in India and the growth that the online program has seen in the recent years. I'll also share some of the insights that we got when we conducted a survey from our own students about what are their expectations when they enroll for an online program, what are their needs and expectations. And I'm going to then dive into the strategies that we have adopted and the kind of outcomes that we've experienced in terms of student learning engagement. Talking about the regulatory framework, this is of course relevant only for the online programs in India. Online programs are governed by the UGC Distance Education Bureau regulations that specify an eligibility criteria before a higher education institution wants to enter into the online space. So they categorize universities into two categories. One is an entitled university. This entitlement stems from the very superior NAC rating. NAC is the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, which undertakes assessment and accreditation of higher education institutions in India. And a NAC rating of 3.26 on a scale of 4, or figuring in the top 100 universities in India in the National Institutional Ranking Framework. So either of the two are the qualifiers. So if a university is in the past 2 years out of the 3, if it is able to satisfy these conditions, becomes an entitled university that can offer online programs without prior approval from the regulator. In case of an entitled university, it can have a NAC score of 3.01 on a scale of 4, and or should cover in the top 100 of the NIRF rankings at least once in the previous 2 years. Now, there is a limit on the kind of programs, the number of programs that can be offered by a higher education university in India. The limit has been capped at 3 undergraduate programs and 5 postgraduate programs. And if a university is desirous of offering more programs, then they'll have to accordingly justify in terms of their scalability. Now, what this eligibility criteria indicate? It gives an assurance of institutional quality. It also tests the readiness of the university for scalable digital delivery. And most importantly, it is centered around protecting learner interests, because students are exposed only to high quality programs offered by universities that are tested on the framework of academic quality and infrastructural support. If we look at the growth of online programs in India, it started off from the year 21-22. There has been a progressive increase in the number of universities that are now offering online programs. If you see from 21-22 to 24-25, there's almost a 70% increase in the kind of universities that have come into this space. There's also been a good increase in terms of more than 80% in terms of the number of programs that are being offered, both at undergraduate and at postgraduate level. The postgraduate seeing almost an increase of more than 80 to 90%. This is also because of a very conducive and a favorable regulatory structure that the country is providing, where online and distance education programs are increasingly coming into mainstream. And that's because of a lot of confidence that the learners are getting, that the degree that they are earning in an online mode comes with the same academic rigor and credibility as of a conventional degree that is being offered in the conventional programs. So if we look at the factors that have contributed to this surge in the number of online programs in India, of course, it's the regulatory framework that is ensuring that only quality universities are coming out with these programs, and the digital infrastructure and the technical advancements. They're able to ensure that we're able to give the same experience to a student in the online mode, kind of replicate the same learning experience that a student would get in an online program, just as you would get in a classroom setting. There's a lot of credibility and recognition that has come because the UGC has given equivalence to the degree that is earned in the online mode. It's exactly the same in terms of recognition, credibility. So there's a lot of acceptance that has come for the online degree, acceptance from the learners themselves, who are the important stakeholders, acceptance also from the employers and the industry, and there's a general social acceptance that has come for online degrees. Coupled with that, the flexibility that it comes, a lot of working professionals are looking at upskilling themselves in an online program because it does not upset any of their work schedules. The policy reforms in India, most importantly, the National Educational Policy 2020, also makes room for online programs and stresses on the importance of creating learning in a flexible and self-paced manner. When we started off our online programs, we wanted to understand what made a student enroll in our program. So we undertook a small survey of our own students. And these are some of the findings that we noted. It's the recognition of the degree that is actually a main reason why students were enrolling in the program. Of course, the flexibility, and most importantly, the ease of enrollment. Because in the regular programs offered by our university, there's a very rigorous selection process in the sense of the number of students who are applying and the kind of intake that is there. So there's almost a demand ratio of 1:70, where for every one seat in a program, there are almost 70 participants or applicants who are contesting for it. Obviously, because of the selection procedure being rigorous, only a select students make it to the on-campus programs offered by the university. However, in the online mode, the enrollment is very simple. It's basic eligibility criteria, an academic criteria that is set, and the procedures are simple, which again makes it a very favorable option to enroll for a program. The cost effectiveness of the program, and the fact that they're getting the same quality of education at much lesser cost has again been shown as an important factor contributing to the popularity. Now, we also wanted to understand what were the students' expectations having enrolled in an online program, and because we wanted to then cull out strategies to meet these expectations. And some of our findings indicated that the students were expecting the same kind of academic quality in terms of the rigor of the program, in terms of the choice of the courses and the electives, and the manner in which the program was being delivered. So they were expecting the same kind of academic quality. Of course, flexibility and convenience, and a learning management system that was mobile friendly, easy to use and maneuver, and a lot of extensive live engagement with the faculty. So this was also a need that we identified, where the students were desirous of attending classes live, where there was an opportunity to interact with the faculty and get their concepts cleared. Another expectation was in terms of the career support and placement assistance, because the regular programs had a promise of placements, and once the student was graduating, he was being extremely employable, ending up in lucrative opportunities. So the same expectation was also carried in case of an online context. Students were also looking at a community engagement and peer learning, and a supportive system to ensure that they are hand-holded right from the time they took admission in the program till the time that they graduate. So this served as a wonderful insight for us when we started off with our online programs. So Symbiosis School for Online and Digital Learning, it serves as the Center for Distance and Online Education of the University of Symbiosis, which is an entitled university. And we started offering these programs from the academic year 22-23. And we have seen a transformative change in terms of students enrolling in these programs. Today, Symbiosis is home to almost 13,000 students studying online from all parts of the country. A lot of international students are also enrolled in the program. Now, the university offered free ships, complete free ships from the girl students wanting to study from Afghanistan. We wanted to reach out to these students who were not able to study in their home country in view of the restrictions that were kept. And we wanted to support them fully. So we took on this task of providing them 100% free ships to these students. And as a result of which, almost 800 students from Afghanistan are presently studying in our online programs from the comforts of their home, and their education is being taken care by the university. The UGC distance education regulations prescribe a 4-quadrant model of program delivery, which itself actually takes care of student engagement. So in quadrant 1, the student is getting access to a lot of asynchronous self-paced content, a good quality content where the concepts are made clear. And there is a synchronous engagement that is mostly done on the weekends because students are all working professionals and they only find time on weekends to connect with the faculty. So the learning is done on weekends for the students. In quadrant 2, we make available the learning resources, which include, of course, a comprehensive self-learning material along with the presentations, case studies, and access to the digital resources from the university's library. Quadrant 3 takes care of peer learning through discussion forums where there's an active dialogue that happens between the faculty and the students and between the students themselves, which is moderated by the faculty. And quadrant 4 talks about the assessments, which are completely online, and they are designed to ensure that the learning outcomes of the course are met. We have seen in the previous presentation an extensive review of literature on how student engagement actually promotes, better knowledge retention, and it also helps the student to stay engaged in the program and eliminates any amount of isolation that they may encounter. And it tries to bring in a sense of belongingness in a virtual environment, irrespective of where the student is joining from. They are all communicated, they are all connected with each other and bond over their period that they are with the institution. So this being the theoretical dimensions of how and why student engagement is very important, we tried to devise certain strategies to ensure that our students stayed engaged. First and foremost, we looked at the academic and curricular engagement. We ensured that the program actually completely aligned with the regular program in terms of the courses and the credits and the assessment pattern. So the students were actually experiencing the same academic rigor. We also ensured that there was a strong mentorship program that is there in the system, where every student was assigned a dedicated mentor and would ensure that the student is in the program and stays active in the program. So there's a lot of hand-holding that the mentor was doing. We also wanted to replicate to a student a kind of a social belongingness through a lot of cultural clubs and clubs catering to different needs of students. So typically in a campus environment, there's a lot of activity that happens outside the classroom, which we wanted to replicate even in an online setting. And therefore, we constituted a lot of student clubs and we invited students to participate in these activities that were done online. Service learning was another a strategy that we adopted, which was it was very successful. Service learning was a component in the program structure of our undergraduate programs that required every student to do a community work irrespective of their locations. They had to identify a social problem within their own community. They could work individually or in groups, and they had to put in 120 hours of community work, and they had to then present their findings, as a part of course completion. And we also constituted a center, Symbiosis Center for Emotional Wellbeing, that took care of the mental and emotional well-being needs of our students. So to elaborate on the academic and curricular engagement, we designed the program in such a way that it largely aligned with the conventional programs. We allowed the student choose from a huge basket of courses. Students doing business management could choose photography related courses that were offered by the School of Photography under the university. We try to enrich the curriculum by bringing in a lot of industry expertise through guest sessions and webinars that were happening on weekends. Research is again deeply integrated into the curriculum, and research component, whether as projects or dissertations, were a mandatory component in every program. So we ensured that there was a collaborative research that was done. And capstone projects were also included in the postgraduate programs, where there was an industry mentor that was assigned to a student, and the student could pick up an organizational issue where they were currently working, and what they were doing was actually very meaningful for their own organization itself, apart from the fact that there was a lot of learning that the student was getting. These are some of the glimpses of the webinars that we continue to do on a regular basis. We pick up topics that meet the different needs of the programs that we are running. And what they do is try and bring in the latest trends to the students and also try to enrich the curriculum of the program. This is an example of how we integrated research into our postgraduate and undergraduate programs. Students were educated about research methodology, which was like a mandatory course in their program, and they had to undertake a research project, which the outcome was a research paper that they had to publish in a reputed journal. So we tried to educate them about the nuances of writing a research paper, and we assigned a faculty mentor to every student who could guide the student as they progress along with their research paper. We encourage students to collectively come together on their research projects. At the end of it, we arranged for a student research conference that was again a completely student-driven conference where students could present their research work to a larger community, and we could identify some of the best research papers that emerged out of this activity, and they were good to be published in reputed journals. So this gave an experience to the student of, the experience of presenting their work to a larger community. And because we also awarded students for their good quality work, it also served as a good incentive for the students of the other batches to take up this project very seriously, because they could see the benefits coming from it themselves. So this is again a glimpse of a student from Afghanistan presenting her paper in the IDEA symposium that was organized. With regards to the student mentorship, we believe that there needs to be a mentor assigned to the student. The role that was assigned to a mentor was had to be in touch with the student and be a one-point contact for all the academic and administrative support that the student needed. So we did a kind of a mentor-mentee kind of a mapping, and a thorough training was given to the mentors in terms of how do they need to track their students' progress, how do they need to study the learning analytics that was coming out from the learning management system, get in touch with their mentors, reminding them at regular intervals about the assignments or the projects and the quizzes that they had to give, and also encourage them to participate in the activities that we were doing as a part of clubs. So a great bond developed between the student and the mentor. There were opportunities when the students could actually come to the campus and they wanted to meet their mentors because they actually had excellent support from them. So this created an opportunity where the student knew that he was not alone and there was somebody who he or she can reach out to. And this proved to be very successful in ensuring that a student is continuing at the program without dropping out.
One minute, please, I'm afraid.
Yeah, thank you. These were some of the clubs that we constituted, which of course catered to different needs of the student. And these are the service learning, as I said, was integrated into our curriculum. Our students did the service learning from their location. So this was an Afghan student who was trying to spread awareness about personal care and menstrual hygiene amongst her community. So they took up topics which were of their personal relevance. They could reflect and they could actually get some learnings out of this community work. These were some of our students who actually were teaching in their local schools and had put in considerable amount of work in these activities. Through our Center for Emotional Wellbeing, we undertook a lot of activities such as online yoga sessions and wellness modules, and a helpline number is made available for a student to reach out for any kind of emotional support, and regular workshops on psychological first aid were being conducted. Now, what were the outcomes achieved? Our first batch of students is graduating this year in 2025, and almost 80% of the students who are enrolled in the program are successfully completing it. We undertook a student satisfaction survey that was supported by the Association of Indian Universities in India, and we were happy to see the student level satisfaction, especially for peer interactions and their motivation and preparedness. This, served as a testament to the efforts that we have taken towards engagement. So I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. I love the way that really complemented Norbert, who set the scene of the why and the theories behind and the frameworks for understanding. And then you really demonstrated the practice. And I was particularly excited to see your 80% of students completing, which is a very high percentage for online and distance education students. So thank you very much. So much happening there. We've got some questions that have come in on the Q&A, and we've also got some questions in the chat as well, which is fantastic. So if I might start with the sort of broader questions. So Norbert, is there an end-to-end example of AI enhancing student engagement that you could share?
I'm not aware of a specific application that's been developed in order to support engagement through AI, and I'm not sure that that's really the right way of thinking about it. I think it's important to become aware of the strengths, the affordances, as well as the risks that AI poses around student engagement. I mean, there is an increasing body of research which you may or may not have seen that really starts to question the extent to which students are willing to stop engaging cognitively with the material that is meant to be covered in learning, structured learning experiences, and if you like, outsource that to AI. And I hope I've shown in my input how important cognitive engagement is as one of the 4 dimensions of engagement that I outlined. So I think it's all about us as educators sensitizing students to the importance of continuing to engage cognitively with the knowledge base that the course is meant to cover, and be very careful about outsourcing that particular dimension to AI. In other areas, of course, such as eliciting through the support of AI sort of real-time feedback about their work. That's an example, where AI could be used really meaningfully in order to explore, some of the content, intellectual, cognitive dimensions in a meaningful way by, asking AI to sort of operate as a sort of Socratic tutor and mediate the engagement with material. So in short, I wouldn't go down the route of have we got an AI for that, but can we make sure that we understand the affordances and the risks of AI, and in particular, the risk of stopping us from putting the necessary and important hard intellectual, cognitive, mental work into learning that is so important as a foundation of learning actually occurring.
Thanks, Norbert. I think that's a really important point, and it perhaps goes back to the things you were saying in your talk around the importance of students undertaking some metacognition about their learning processes. So noticing when they're learning, reflecting on their learning, engaging with that. How did this just happen that I now understand something better than I did before? All of that is so important, and I completely agree with that risk of cognitive disengagement with too much AI support. And I think that's one of the challenges that we are faced with in designing our programs. I thought that Parimala, you were so good at illustrating how you strategically thought out the way in which students will engage, and we didn't see all of your slides, but we will be able to share slides with people if they'd like to, subject to your approval. And there's clearly so much rich information in there about the kinds of strategies that you use. Now, Debbie's asked a question about student engagement with online clubs, and you mentioned online social clubs, and she's asked if there are any recommendations you would make based on that work. So how have you successfully got your students to engage in social clubs, and what recommendations would you share with us, please?
Right. So before we institutionalize clubs, we did a survey with our students wanting to know what are the clubs that they wanted to be a part of. And from the information, we culled out certain clubs where we felt all the students were interested. So these were essentially a cultural club. A lot of students wanted to showcase their talent. They wanted a career support and a placement club and an internship club. So there were a wide range of clubs that we could start, but we wanted to have student participation and acceptance. So we reached out to the students wanting to know what is it that is of interest to you. And then once we constituted it, we kept it open for students, and slowly we identified some of the very high participating students who then we made them as heads of this club. And the onus was on these students now to reach out to the larger student community and ensure that the others are also getting interested. So that was one way where we could ensure that all these clubs had a good participation. We also had a weekly calendar where we ensured that events were happening under each of these clubs. So every club gets an equal chance, an opportunity where students could participate. And we invited students to, to showcase their talent. And the online experience makes it the potential of online is that it can reach out to thousands of students, and there's a lot of diversity that is there, which we don't experience it in a regular physical kind of structure. So the sheer fact that we are able to reach out to thousands of students also means that you have thousands of talented pool of students who are somewhere or the other, can be nurtured. So we ensured that student clubs are also headed by students, and we picked up these students based on how engaged they are in the program. And so they were also committed to ensuring that the club that they were heading must also be doing exceedingly well. So there was a sort of a competition between students, between their own clubs, to ensure that each of their club actually happens to top the list in terms of the kind of activities that they do. So that was one way we could have done it.
That's really, really helpful, isn't it? And really picking up on that social presence, and that students as co-creators, which we were talking about in the first session, that student to student interaction, so valuable there. Norbert's kindly put in a your brain on ChatGPT link, which I think people will find helpful to have a look at, going back to that cognitive thing. And Catherine's asked about industrial placements. I don't know if either of you want to talk about industrial placements in terms of the online context. Parimala, can we start with you perhaps and think about your industrial placements and how they worked in terms of online students? Were they local placements, so they find their local placement where they are as a physical placement, but they're engaging with the university in the online system? Is that how it worked?
Right. So in case of an online program, in our case, predominantly the students were working professionals. So they were actually looking at a lateral progression within their own organizations, and the fact that they had a degree to back it up ensured that they were progressing within their own organizations. And the university has a very good ecosystem in terms of nurturing placements and opportunities that were also extended, to the online space. We also ensured that there was lots of capacity building that was done. So a lot of capacity building in terms of how do you hone the skills of students, right? From how do you build your resume, how do you acquire your presentation skills? Because again, students come from different profiles. There's a lot of diversity, and they get immensely benefited from this kind of nurturing that is done. And as they progress to the advanced semesters, we try and groom them on specific skills. So, for example, somebody who's doing an MBA in business analytics, you make them oriented about what kind of skill sets are required, what kind of job openings are there, and then put them in touch with potential opportunities. And another important factor that worked for us was the reputation that the university had, which a 50-year-old legacy. So graduates from the university, they tend to, this kind of credibility and acceptance sort of rubs off even on the online students, right? So they enjoy the same patronage that a regular student would enjoy. So this again translated into opportunities for the students.
Absolutely, that makes complete sense, doesn't it? That link between the on-campus and the online provision, or the distance provision, and the credibility of the organisation. Absolutely. No, but did you want to come in?
The only sort of comment I would offer in addition is in relation to, again, the link back to engagement and the importance for students to really understand the authenticity of the work that they're doing and its relevance to specific applied contexts, and therefore, placements can be seen to be extremely valuable in that respect. But I think from my own experience, it's very important that these opportunities are sufficiently supported by a university in the sense of students being sensitized to the learning opportunities that can occur, and then scaffolded the opportunities, work opportunities in those placements to be actually then scaffolded through facilitated interaction back at the university to really make sense of what's really happened and how that relates to learning objectives that may feature on the program.
Thanks, Norbert. Yeah, absolutely. Parimala, you set your slides up with a very helpful sort of regulatory framework in the sense of who can offer online and courses, and I thought that was really important. And in fact, we've had a couple of questions in the chat, one from the last session and this one in terms of involvement and approval of regulators and ministries and so on. And I think that this is quite important to understand, and this is perhaps quite a big difference between the UK system and the system in India in terms of the regulatory framework in which open, online, digitally enhanced, etc. education sits as part of that. I don't know if either of you want to sort of comment on the importance of the regulatory system in terms of ensuring equality and quality of experience for students.
Yeah, absolutely. The regulations have ensured that only universities which are able to offer quality programs are actually allowed to enter into the space. So this sort of acts as a shield, for the student. The student interest is getting protected here. They don't end up signing into a program, paying fees for a program which is not recognized, or they are not able to get the kind of experience that they want. So the regulations have actually act as a good quality filter. The NAC assessment is itself a very comprehensive assessment, which is testing the university on the parameters of curricular quality, student support services, learning resources, and the kind of teaching, learning, and evaluation that's undertaken. So universities which are able to satisfy this kind of a quality benchmark are only allowed in the online space. So that means this is ensuring that the programs that are being offered are, are of good quality, and they can be scaled up to cater to the millions of students who are wanting to get into the, online program. So the regulator is actually playing a very important role in protecting the students' interests. They also monitor the students' enrollment through the program. So it's a very transparent and a regulated system, and which is again building a lot of trust and confidence of the students in an online program. Yes, so it all depends on the trust. It's all about acceptance. It's about trust, and the backing that the regulator is giving is actually ensured that there's a big trigger of online programs that we have seen in the recent past.
Really important points there, aren't they? So it's about protecting the quality of the experience that students have, but it's also about enhancing the reputation of degrees that are obtained through the online distance enhanced space. You're absolutely really important. Norbert, did you want to just have the...
Yeah, I think I would also maybe say a few words about shorter online courses. I think obviously degree programs have increasingly become available online, but historically and looking forward, for example, in the UK, in the context of the lifelong learning entitlement, are shorter bits of learning, modules, micro-credentials. And I think in that context, it's really, really important to have a common language, if you like, for the description and the actualization of online provision that enables learners over time to pick and choose from different providers and accumulate learning portfolios that take an offer from various different providers, and hopefully in due course, bring these together into some sort of recognized portfolio. And so it's important that there is a shared language, that there's agreements about length, about credit value, about hours of learning, associated transit cost and all the rest of it, to make it easier for learners to make informed choices about provision and have a good sense of quality imprimatur that may sit behind them.
Absolutely. I think that's the kind of next step for us, isn't it? Absolutely. Very interesting. Now, thank you both for a really stimulating session on student engagement and student wellbeing. Really, really stimulating, a fantastic kind of mapping across the two talks there. It's working so well this forum. I'm so delighted. So thank you very much both. Again, we're clapping you, but we can't really clap you that well. Thank you for joining us. We're now going to have a break and we will come back on the hour. So in India, the hour, we will come back at 4:30 India time, and we will come back at 12 o'clock UK time. So have a break, get up, walk around, and I'm going to put a little bit of homework for you in the chat in a cheeky sort of way. But we'll be turning off the volume and the video on this side, and we'll see you in 13 minutes, we hope. Thank you very much to our speakers.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.